Okay, this is a demonstration of Arb Pro as it is as of today, the 12th of November 2014. The purpose of this demonstration is to show you exactly how much progress we've made with development for the new version of Arb Pro being released very shortly. What we're looking at here, bear in mind through this demo that this is not a complete system yet, there's still some development work to go on, however we're very near completion of this phase of development. What we're looking at here is the dashboard. The dashboard is intended as an overview of the system. It shows you in different categories. If we look here, we're looking at invoicing as an overview. Over here we have sales inquiries and quotes, appointments, and we have tree protection information. If we start off with the invoices, what we have here is every single invoice that's been generated in the system. This has given me an overview showing me that there's 25 invoices that are now overdue. When you send an invoice, you set a date when you wish to be paid by. If that date goes past, so you haven't received payment, they drop off onto an overdue list. What we'll be adding here, where that number is of 25 invoices, we'll also be adding a total sum. So in terms, you can see the monetary value set on invoices that are overdue. Those awaiting dispatch, this will be a list of invoices where the work's been marked as complete but hasn't been invoiced yet. And payments due are invoices whether they're overdue or not. Coming across to sales inquiries and quotes, we have pending inquiries. So these are appointments where someone's phoned up to ask for a quotation. Mrs. Jones is on the phone, I have a quote for some tree work. You've gone in, you've entered all the information to capture that quotation, and you haven't yet booked an appointment for the surveyor. Pending quotes, these are quotes where site visits have been completed. The information has either been uploaded from the mobile device. If you don't know, there's a free mobile app which comes with this application. You download it from the Apple App Store on your iPhone or iPad, and that allows you to go out and undertake site visits and so much, and lots of other information you can collect. So there would be a list of everything that's awaiting to be sent to the client. And then we've got quotes that have been accepted but not yet booked. So someone phones up and says, I'd like to accept that quote, but you don't actually book a date for whatever reason, and so here's a list of those that have been accepted. Coming down into the bottom, appointments, you can see your appointments for today. You can see your sales appointments coming up for surveyors, so these are quotes you're going out to do. Any scheduled tree work that's coming up, or general appointments generally. Coming across to the tree protection information, we've got conservation dates. So these are applications that we've made in relation to trees and conservation areas. And we've also got trees that are protected with a tree preservation order with an 8-week determination date, and a list of every single application that's running at the moment. And we have a list of appeals. So we've received a decision and we don't quite agree with that decision, therefore we've appealed. So that's an overview of the dashboard. And selecting any one of these, for example, if we go and have a look at that quote that's been accepted, I shall select that one. That will take me straight to that particular quote where I can now come and book that job in. But okay, let's go back to that. So that's everything in the dashboard. And as I have said previously, this is intended as an overview of the system, so you can see exactly where you're at in terms of appointments, money, work that's booked. It's a bird's eye view of everything that's going on. What we've also got at the top is search tools. You can search the system on any one of these fields, so we can search for a client name or address, a telephone. We can search on all of these different fields here. Coming down to the quote section, we can search by a client number. Every time you create a new account for a particular individual or business, they're allocated their own unique account number, much like your bank account number. And obviously, so you can search on that number or their name, or we can search on a site address for a job. We can search on a quote number or an invoice number. Those are the search fields. The other search criteria that's being added at the top here is there's a video help dialog box that's being added. It's not there at the moment. However, I can show you it's going to look something roughly like this, where you can enter a search word. So here we're saying how to send a quote by email. You have a search command button, and the results will appear here with a link to watch a video. Also along the top, so this is how you move and navigate through the system. Coming across clients is obvious. Here's where we're going to go and look at our client information. We have inquiry, someone phones up with like a quotation for some tree work. a calendar where we can go and look at our appointment status for tree work, appointments and general calendar items, company information and the settings screen. Now if we start off with the settings screen, in here what you can see is, what we'll do is we'll look at one and then we'll look at how it works, and it applies for everything all the way through then. So if we look at work description, here you can see that what we have is a description of work. So fail to ground level and stack all the risings. Hours required is if you want to apply a number of hours for a particular work item, which won't always be applicable, we know, and then we save that. So you go on it, so we've got grind out stump, and you've got lots of different categories of work here. We can go and add a new description of work. Don't have to put any hours required because you wouldn't know how long a fail is going to take, of course. Save that. That'll now be available for you to view as a drop down item. Let's close that. Now if we go into the client screen now and we go and have a look at Mark Hines, what I'm going to do, I'm not really going to explain too much about this part at the moment because I just want to get to a particular job so that I can show you how that would work. You can see here you have a tree work item, T2 a birch. We've got fail to ground level, removal risings, and what we can actually do if I re-edit that is actually let's just add another work item. So the way that it would work is you start to add your tree work. This is an oak. You can see all the tree species are appearing. You manage that list as well. If we now say we're going to fell, you can see that the description that we added earlier of fell 12 has now been added as a pick list item. So what you do is you go into your settings when you first get the system and you populate all of these different items, and in here you can manage all your letters. So each letter that you have, so we've got first invoice letter here. So every invoice that comes out of the system, which is a first invoice, this is where you come and you create that letter, and thereafter you don't actually have to then keep repetitively typing quotations. The system will generate them for you with the client information displayed on them. And we've got that for all of the quotation and invoicing, so you'll actually be able to generate all that information. And moving through, it's the same for tools. You can go and add all the kit that you use commonly. Personally, I wouldn't go through and add every single truck I have or every single chipper. Here it's just really that when you go out on site, if you're using the mobile app, you can pick that you need a truck or you need a chipper, and so you add in here the equipment that you have. However, you can actually start to add specific items, so we could add, if that's how you want to use the system. So we actually use in the truck HX04, we've just got one of those and we'll save that. So now that's a pick list item for when I add tools on site, and this gets, whatever you add in this system will be exported to the mobile app when you do a download and a sync, so that whatever you're adding here is available on site for the surveyor to pick. And again, we've got tree names, so we can start to populate all that information and add and amend different ones on there. This is not finished in here. There's some other templates to be added, such as risk assessment, for example, where you'll can manage the risk assessment fields in here, and other information through the system which is available as a drop down item. If we come to the company screen, in here you edit and manage your company information. That will be the reply to, so when you send emails from the system, that will that's the email account address, so that's what your clients will see from the from field. So to your client from Arb Pro software. What we also have is the ability here to generate and create a header for all of your reports. So every quote and invoice being generated by the system will be branded for your particular company. We'll have a look at some reports in a moment, but you simply just upload a header and upload a footer, and that's it. That's all your quotes and invoices coming out from the system. The same applies for emails during generated from the system. You upload a email footer, which is what you'd use to populate those emails. We've got accounts export, so from here is where we can link Arb Pro with your accounts package so that you can export data on as regular a basis as you require. And we've got data export where we haven't quite populated that information yet, but here's where you'll be able to take out a lot more different information from the system. Moving down to the document section, here you can see a list of emails that have been sent from the system and their status. We'll have a look at that in a moment. And letters will be coming soon, as it says there. That's not quite finished. It will show you every letter that's been generated from the system. We have a complaints tab where you can add and manage the details of a complaint. So if we maybe, for example, dropped a branch, damaged a greenhouse in the neighbour's garden, we can actually register that as a complaint, put the details of the complaint. So we've got the complaint there, who is the person that's complained, what are the details of the complaint, and what did we do to resolve it. We've also got here a Teams tab where we can add colours for as many staff or however many teams it is that you're sending out every day. We can start to add staff members. We've got contacts in the business as well. These would be things like mechanics you use, for example, or any external service provider that the business uses. So the contact details is added in here so that anybody in the business can come and find those contact details. So that's the company screen. The company screen and the settings screen, if you like, are the engines of the system, and here is where you come and populate and manage different information. And as I said, at the top there is where you'll soon be finding the search tool for videos. So if we go ahead and roll our way through a typical inquiry, so the phone rings, we go to inquiry, go to the sales tab, we search for the particular customer. There he is, Mark Hines. We'll grab that and use that. And now what we can do is say use an existing site here. So you can see I've got 3 different sites where I've worked for this particular client in the past. So they're now available for me to pick. So I don't actually have to type any information in anymore. So I can actually grab that information. If it's a new client, someone you haven't worked before, the previous screen I should have shown you there was a new option. You create a new account for that particular client from there. So here what we're going to do is just say this one is for Sunnydale Farm. How did they hear of us? So we'll put repeat custom. And comments would be any comments that the person on the phone is relaying to you regarding this inquiry. But I'm just going to put test 345. So now we can view our availability. So now looking at the calendar and what availability we have. I'm going to book this one in for, I can see I've got an appointment tomorrow. You can drill down a bit to day view. So this is today. I'll go forward to tomorrow. I can see I've got one at 12 o'clock down at Fletchwood Farm. I'm going to put this one in for 1 o'clock as a new appointment. Select done and save. So now that's that appointment having now been added. It's added the site information for me here. And now that appointment is available for the surveyor to download on their mobile device. So if the surveyor was in the office and he had his iPhone or his iPad, which I'll show you shortly after this video, then he could sync his device and that information would be available as an appointment for tomorrow. Excuse me. So if we go back and look at a previous quote that I know is already in the system here, we can see that, let's assume the surveyor's gone out, he's undertaken his site visit, and he's uploaded the information and it's now available for me in the device. So when the surveyor comes back to the office, he's not going to be typing any information, or none of the admin staff is. He's simply going to upload or sync his device using Wi-Fi in the office, and then all of the information that the surveyor's captured that day, whether it's 10, 20, 30 appointments or 2, will be uploaded and available. Now things in there are going to include pictures that he's captured. Here you can see a picture of a tree where it looks as though we're going to be reducing the height of this particular tree. The surveyor's taken a picture on site, and then what he's done in the presence of the client probably is he's annotated the photograph and shown the client. It's one of the tools in the mobile app where you can take a photograph and annotate it with the client, and he's showing that client exactly where the finished height is going to be. That takes away a lot of the ambiguity that's always existed when doing these types of works, or commonly does, not always, whereby you're pointing at a background feature in the sky or something, saying, because it's hard for some people to visualize a finished height when you just say, I'm going to take 2 meters off. By using something like this, you're actually showing a specified height, and it's almost a specification agreement between you and the client that's visual, and the guys that go out and do the work can have this picture as well and can see exactly the finished height you've agreed. And along the bottom here, it looks as though we've going to be doing some crown lifting, and we're showing the finished height of the lift. We've also taken a second picture on site to show the birch tree, and that's been uploaded as well. And something which isn't in here yet that you can't see, but I'll show you on the mobile devices, you can map the location of trees, and there'll be a map thing here so that you can, a map command button, so that you can actually see a map of the site which will show where these trees are located in relation to the property. So these are our 3 tree work items. There's been no picture added for this third one. Now, however, if you knew there were a picture on the system, you could choose a file to upload. In fact, although really we're looking at pictures for this, you could upload anything against this particular work item. Maybe it's a site plan or a purchase order or something like that. So there's a particular quote. If we now want to send that quote to the client, we just come down to produce quote. We have the standard text template information in here, which is, so that's going to populate our letter so that we don't actually have to keep rewriting it. Let's generate that PDF. So it's gone and put that information in for us. If we go and produce both a letter and a schedule, and then what we can see is, let's generate that PDF. So what we can see here is, first of all, we need to sort out our header and footer, because that needs to be uploaded correctly. But what you can see for the purpose of this is you can see it's taken the client's information and populated it into there for us. It's put the client account number, the quote number, which surveyor looked at it, site reference, and importantly, it's done all of the letter for us, so we don't have to do that. It will also add for us a branded schedule of work detailing each of those work items and the cost you've allocated against each one. And then simply to print it, we just come down to the print tool. If we want to email this to the client, we simply come down to the email section. So we're going to email this to the client. We've got the subject of the email there. We can start to type anything we wish in here, which would be the body of the email. And we can choose, so by default it's going to attach a covering letter and a schedule of work, but we could also go and attach other things such as maybe our trading terms and conditions and attach that as well. So here you can see now we're sending the quotation letter, the quote, schedule, trading terms and conditions. You might wish to go and attach your insurance documents even. So once you're happy with that, you simply go and press send email, and that is then fired off to your client, and you can see exactly what's being sent to the client, including the text in the email. So let's go and close that. When emails or letters are sent from the system, you have a history at the bottom here that you can see what hasn't been, or in the process of being completed, is you can see that the hands appearing, which means I will be able to select that and regenerate that PDF document. So if I wanted to reprint the quote, I will be able to. Moving along to a history tab, that just shows a complete history of everything sent to the customer for this particular quote, the date it was sent, and so on. So this quote, let's assume it's now been sent. If we come back to the company screen and we do a search, let's just do a search of emails sent today, and we show here in the system that these 2 emails have been sent. Now when the system sends an email to your client, it always copies one to the logged in user. So I'm logged in, I'm working for this tree company, I get CC'd, so I get a copy, so I know it's gone, and I also get a copy sent to the client. Now what you've got in the status column is the status of the email. We can see that this one's been sent and it's been sent successfully, but what I've done just for demonstration purposes, we've added a 3 in the email here, and I know that that email address isn't true, it's incorrect, therefore we've got the error message. I just thought it was really important to show you that. And it's just important you come back and check your email status to make sure that your customers are receiving them. What you will be able to do again, but it's not in here at the moment, is you can't see the quote or the customer number here, but you can see the hand appear, and you'll be able to select that particular email, and it will take you to the relevant email and client, the relevant client screen, so you can see the client information and the particular quote that this email relates to. So let's go back and return to the client screen. Let's search for the client that we're looking for in the search tool here. Select that particular item, and we've now moved across to that particular company. So this is Mark Hines. His contact information is displayed at the top with phone numbers and the information in relation to the account. You can edit that here, and you can see it's generating me a map of where this particular account is, and I can zoom in on that. This is the home address. In the same way, if we come to sites, so these are all the different sites for this client, including the site that could be this office address here at Prospect Place. But we've got a few more sites. So this is a commercial client that we're working for, but we could go ahead and have a look at Fletchwood Farm. This is another site that we work at. We can generate maps and drill down and see exactly where this site is. We could print that off for our staff if we wish to, and we can do the same. So these are all the different sites that we've worked at for this particular customer, and that's useful, keeping them in the system for jobs that come up in the future. And we can just keep adding new sites here, so every time that the client gives us another site to work at, we can go and add that information. Got different jobs that we've done for this client, so until it turns into a quotation, it's a job inquiry. So if we come along and have a look at this one here, this is one that's blank. We haven't added any work for it yet, so let's go ahead and add a couple of items just so you can see. So T1, that one an oak, and we're going to fell this tree. The work becomes available, so I don't have to. So retain the peck and post, we put that at 5 meters, and we give this a price of 650, and we apply a VAT rate of 20%. It's important that you can select your own VAT rates, because some items might not, but it's not that common, but it does happen. Logs are an example, they're not set at 20%, so I'm not even sure what the VAT rate is for logs, but let's assume that it's 5%. So now it's added that second item at 5%, or it could be 0% for whatever reason. So we can see here we've got £7.50 of VAT at 5% and 130 at 20. So the total price for everything is 93750. So we then go back to the what you have already seen, really, where we can produce the quote. So let's just go ahead and do that, and I'm just going to step through this one quite quickly because we've done that. So that's that quote sent to the client now. We've sent a letter on this occasion. Now, sometime later, the client phones up, I'd like to accept that quote, so we come to this part here and we say mark that quote as accepted. We can now move across, just before we do, on the notes screen here, we could add a note if the client were to phone up about this particular quote and they had some information they wished you to know. You can add in notes that are created from phone calls or emails or whatever it is in relation to this particular quote. But what we're going to do now is we're going to actually the job's been accepted, we're going to book this job in. So if at work booking stage there was other works to be added, we can come over here and add some more items of work. Or after booking the job, when the staff come back, if they, let's say they felled an extra tree on site, and that was agreed with the client as an extra £150, here's now where we can say, okay, you did a bit extra than the original quote, let's go ahead and add that. Let's say that they felled a birch tree on the day as well, and they removed all the risings, and we charged an extra 200 for that at 20%. Okay, so that's now increased this actual price. Going back to where we were at, I just wanted to show you that part, how we could add extra items. So now we're ready to book this job, so we book work. It opens the calendar. And this screen isn't complete here. What it's going to show you here is all the different staff you have available. You could start to apply staff against this job now if you wish. If it were tomorrow, then that would be fine, I think. If this job's not going to be started until 2 weeks' time, you maybe won't want to apply staff at this stage. You never know who's going to be in, I guess, and what other work commitments you might have. But we'll just give it a team number. That really means that's my first team out on this particular day. We can see where we're working. We will see in here what tools have been added. So I could start. These will already be here from the mobile app because you've collected it at quote stage. But we're just going through this one here and nothing's been added yet. But you can see I can start to add new tools and see what's needed. I can see that there's one 28-inch chainsaw required. However, what we could say is let's put a truck in as well. Let's put that truck in. And you can see we start to apply all different types of tools. You can see your availability. Today's date is shown as a blue. Let's go and book this one in for the 21st and make that booking. What you won't see on this screen at the moment, but it is about to be added, it will now show the date when this work is booked for. It's not there at the moment, but it will be showing that very soon. And now we can go and produce some work packs. So these are the packs of information for staff. You'll also be able to email these packs of information to your staff. If you want to send work packs out digitally, you can. Just bear in mind that they can't actually complete these work packs digitally. You'd only be able to email them to them, and then they would need to print them off if you had a staff member working from a different location, for example. So at this stage, well, actually at the mobile stage, they would have actually completed a risk assessment as well. But given that we've not actually uploaded anything from the mobile device, we're going to create one on the desktop now because you also have the facilities to do that. But obviously you're going to be doing it at quote stage when you can see what those actual risks are. So staff involved, this would be the chaps actually going out to do the work. So we might do this the day before. Dates, they're auto-generated by when we populate fields and enter information. We've got the site information where the chaps are actually going to do the work. And then we've got emergency information. So let's go and edit that. So the first one is mobile phone signal. So let's just put 3 bars, for example. We've also got to add a field in there to show the actual mobile provider like Orange or Vodafone or whatever it is. That's one field that's missing. Here we're saying there's a spare climbing kit available and there's a nominated person for aerial rescue. That's our aerial rescue plan. Then we're going to select who's actually responsible from our staff pick list for aerial rescue, and we're ticking there to say that they do have CS38. Next one we're going to do is site access. Now this would be if you're working in a remote location in a woodland to guide the emergency services in. So you might put something like through the 5-bar gate, up the field and so on and into the woodland that way. The nearest hospital, that's going to come from your settings screen where you can keep adding hospitals. I'd suggest that it'd be quite simple for you just to add the hospital name and postcode. And grid reference, you actually capture that on the mobile device by lining up the crosshairs where you are on the map, press collect, and it will capture the grid reference location where you are using the mobile. So that information is already going to be in here, but it's obviously not because we're doing desktop here. So the emergency information, as you see, as you can now see, has all been updated. We've got the risk management over here. So this is management of completed risk assessment. So this is a bit of a later stage. This is when the boys have gone and done the work. They've brought back the packs of information. You look at your risker. Are you happy with how the staff have completed? Have they signed it? Have they dated it? Do you feel the control measures that they've entered are adequate, and so on? If you're not, then you can put it in as a referral, identify which staff member completed it. So you've got a management structure here as well for risk assessments. Moving down now to the risk assessment sections, so looking at emergency first, we come to edit assessment. So these are the first aid welfare provisions. So do we have everything in the first aid box that we require? It's a phase 2 assessment, meaning we don't undertake this assessment at quotation stage because we're looking at what's in the first aid box on the day of work. So on day of work, that's to be assessed by the chaps on site. Now, sorry, just going back to it, the reference here and chapter, that is going to relate to our generic risk assessment. Now, in the settings tab, there will be a new setting being added so that you can enter that information. So you'll go in here and you'll enter all your different generic risk assessments and the chapter that risk item relates to. So in the last window, we were looking here at what's the what reference are we going to use for our generics for emergency? So it might be emergency 1, and which chapter in the document does this relate to? So maybe 2.1 as an example. So come across to our environmental assessment. We edit the assessment. Is there a water course? You can see here this is a phase 1 assessment. So we're doing this at inquiry stage, not phase 2 at work stage. There's our chapter reference in the generic risker. So we're going to have here the generic risk assessment document name and which particular chapter. So this is all going to be in chapter 3, and then we've got in our environmental assessment at 3.1 is where our control measures are for when we're working over water. So control required, let's say yes, let's say we're working over a water course. The control measures for risk assessment for working over water will be set out in your generic. So the comments here isn't intended for you to stand there on site and have to write all your control measures. They're already detailed in your generic. So by ticking yes and referencing that chapter, I think that's as much as you need to do. And then your staff will assess it on the day as a tick box exercise. Protected species are there any birds, bats, or any wildlife that you need to consider? Control required, yes. We've got our risk assessment chapter, and we can add any specific comments. And again, the staff do their own one on the day as a tick box paper exercise. Noise and dust, that's always going to be yes, I would have thought, and the staff do one on the day, and we'll save that. Machinery, again, we've got all our different reference chapters for the generics. So if we're using a brushwood chipper, control required, yes, and we work our way down the list. So we've done a risk assessment for work items. We've also got operations, so edit the assessment, which is branch removal, tree climbing, and all the different items that are in there, very similar to the AA assessment, and in fact there's a bit more in there, I think. We've also got site considerations. Let's edit that assessment. Again, it's a yes, no, controls required, and then you've got your comments section. And then we've got a working at height assessment. Let's edit that assessment. Do we need controls for these particular items? We come down to a decision. And then the last one that we have at the bottom here is we have the facility to add a new risk. So for example, maybe we don't have a specific generic risker for tackling barbed wire in a tree at chest height. So we might put in here barbed wire noted at chest height. And then whatever the control measures are to minimise the risk of kickback and other risks associated with working or felling a tree with barbed wire at chest height. Save that. So now that's been added as a new risk item. And you can just keep going and going and going and going for anything that you find on site, any particular risk requiring control measures, which isn't detailed here. So let's return to the work management screen. You can see there's an error there. That's got to come out of the system. We'll go back this way. As you can see, these are some of the things which need to be sorted in the system, what we're working on at the moment. So we find Mark Hines, move on to him. We'll go on to the different jobs we have, and then we'll move on to that particular job there, which is the one we've been working on. The risk assessment that we've been working on. And come back to that client. We know that if I go back, how you should be able to go back, which is straight to the client, it's going to crash. So we'll just go about it this way. Come back to that particular job. There are the work items that's been, remember we added T3 as an extra one. We've booked that work in. We're going to go ahead and generate a PDF. So it's going to generate for me a risk assessment to give the staff. Again, everything's not in here at the moment, but it will give me this site-specific risk assessment. It's going to give me a schedule of work, but it won't detail prices against the work items. It will just say those particular 3 items, T1 to T3, and what it is the boys need to do. It's also going to have with it a work order, which specifies the tools they should be taking, how long's on the job, what staff are going, who's doing what in terms of aerial rescue and so on. That's the work. So there'll be 3 pieces of paper which relate to risk assessment, schedule of work, and the work order. They come back, you mark the job as completed and move to the invoice stage. Unfortunately, the invoice section isn't yet hooked up. That's something that's being done. I hope to have that done by the end of this week, so that'll be Friday the 14th, or the very early part of next week. And so I'll make another video in a couple of weeks to show you where we're at then, and I'm rather hoping in that period of time we'll be able to be close to releasing something. So history is everything that's been sent. Something that I didn't show you at the top there was tree protection. Here's where you'll come in. So you'll complete a paper copy one app, and here's where you can now capture that. So TPO exists. We'll say these trees are protected. The order type. So let's say it's a tree preservation order, not a conservation area. Authority reference, the reference that that will be the reference number that you assign to this for your own filing systems. If you were to file this in a folder somewhere now, a paper copy of the one app form, here's where you'd give it the reference number so I can go find that in that particular folder. So the local authority that we're making the application to, and the application stage, we'll just say that this is the application stage sent. Here's where we enter our internal reference again. I'm just going to put BN, well no, I won't, I'll put TP/1. So the date I'm making the application, and you'll note that the 8-week determination date has been worked out for me. And you'll also note that the 6-week conservation date will be worked out for me. And what you will note there is that we're getting wrong dates at the moment, but that's something, again, there's a small bug in the system. That's the idea is that that's going to show you when this application should be determined by, within 8 weeks or 6 weeks from those dates entered. So you make your application to the council. The council then send a decision. You can enter the local authority reference number, the planning officer, their contact number, and the decision date. Application has been, you've been given, they've accepted that application, you've been given consent, and then you've also got your appeal information if you want to appeal their decision, and we've got some notes where we can add. Let's just go ahead and close that. So that's pretty much most of the information on the client screen, all the way through with work, risk assessment, tree protection, history, and so on. If we go and take a look at the calendar that's in here, what you can see in the calendar is you've got different types of events. So we've got quotes that are coming up. You can see the calendars being filtered, tree work that's booked in. We can also see all the generic events. So in here I can see that Mark Hines has got some holiday booked. We've got a Lola inspection, bucket truck due for Lola, and tax expires on a vehicle, and an MOT, chipper booked for bearing change. But let's just go ahead and have a look at all of our appointments. So these ones here are quotations coming up, jobs we've looked at in the past, and jobs that we need to look at. So the calendar is a very useful tool for seeing as an overview everything that's going on and everybody's availability. And to create a generic event, for example, you simply select a date. Here we selected the 25th. Let's say it's a one-day event. You just give it a generic name. Let's just say that it's leave. We could actually say it's a bank holiday. No, let's put it in as a staff holiday event, and we could actually pick a staff member, and we can add comments as well and save that. So you can see there it's actually, but I would probably put holiday leave Mark. Save that, and there now it's showing me straight away who's on leave and what the event is. So that's the calendar. We've got the company screen as you've seen, and the settings screen where you come in and update all the different drop down lists. We have in our next release, we won't be adding it to this particular release is the marketing section, but that's to come from the client screen. As soon as the first release is out, we'll be then amending that so that we can then actually start to add the marketing information. You can see that command button there, it's in the current system, but we just want to get this particular model out and in use, so the marketing will follow behind it very, very shortly. And the marketing will work in the sense that for every particular work item, you apply against it work categories. So the work here could be hedge cutting, it could be crown reduction work, we could be fruit tree pruning, stump grinding, a whole manner of different work activities, which builds up a history for a client. And then that's at granular level, so an individual client, and then coming out, zooming out if you like, to look at the whole database. If you've got 1,000 clients in here and you segmented them all up like that, then it's very easy to query the system and say, do you know what, let's do a marketing campaign for every single person that we've done hedges for in the past, in the same way that you can do the same marketing campaign for everybody that you've given a quote to for hedge cutting but didn't accept it. For example, what we've also got here coming up is return time management. So a job is completed, and as soon as that job is completed, you'll enter a date when you should return by or when you expect. Let's be clearer. Let's just say we finished a crown reduction, and in my opinion, based on the size of the tree and anticipated regrowth rates, that tree will probably require pruning again in 2 years. I don't want to drive past in 2 years and see another tree company up that tree simply because my client forgot who did the work. Return time management in the system is going to remind me in 2 years to make contact with this client at the stage when I think the tree will become an issue again, for whatever reason we're there for today. So there's two distinctly different but very useful types of marketing. One is to just start your own marketing campaigns based on work categories, and the other is return time management based on particular work types when you anticipate that works will be required again. Now, adding clients is simple. We can just simply come down here and say let's add a new client. We start to type the information in the same way. If I just put a postcode in, it shows me where that particular client is. I can zoom down and add the information. So there's two ways of adding a client. One is directly on the client screen, now, which is what we're doing right now. Now, the alternate account number that I'm being asked for now is your accounts number in Sage or whatever account package system it is that you are using. So if we just go and give this a number of Sage A1/956, so that's just a made up number, but that could be my unique number in Sage that relates to David Banner. So David Banner has an account in Sage, and this is his unique ID in Sage. By entering that number into Arb Pro, you've now in effect stitched those two different accounts together so that when we export information from the system in relation to invoicing, so invoices generated and invoices paid, then the two pieces of information, it will just export that out into a spreadsheet and you can import it directly into Sage. It will know where to put it because you've used that unique account number. So house name and number, we'll just give this one we'll leave it there at that actually. So there's the new account. We can start to add different contacts. If I come back to this one where there are a few more, you can see these are different contacts that we deal with at this company. So we deal with Mark Hines and Julian Hutchinson, and we put their email addresses because we can choose who to communicate with when we send a quote or invoice by having those particular contacts here. And you can see we can add people that are alternative invoices. So your client says, give me a quote for this job, but when you invoice, you need to invoice a different address. So you have the facility in here to actually create alternative invoice individuals and addresses. You simply just come down to add new, and you can start to add as many contacts. So this list, you could have 20 contacts that you deal with in this business, for example. That's all the different sites that you work at for this company, the different jobs you have running or completed, and any appointments that are existing or gone for this particular client. Well, that is pretty much a comprehensive tour of the system as it is right now. There's still functionality waiting to be added, and I rather hope that this system is going to be available in the next few weeks for users to start using. Okay, thanks for watching.